Ladies and gentlemen, this show is all about empowering people. We like to talk about how we empower people who are making a difference. And I would have to argue that when you are providing solar power to people, you guys are doing a great job of doing that. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is the Your Little Castle show. You can see on our set here we have some experts that will really help you to be empowered. Rory Sands, Dustin Bishop. Dustin's the owner, Rory, director of the sales team.
Director of education team.
Education. See, there we already made one little hiccup with regard to what we often talk about, because these guys made the point. It's about education. It's about educating the people that you're talking to. There's a connotation towards sales that we all know about. We won't even spend more time talking about that. But and I've talked about this for years because I'm a salesperson. We're all salespeople when we're trying to provide for ourselves. Everybody says, I don't know how to. You are trying to make a living. You're going to have to prove your worthiness to people. But better than that is to be an educator, somebody that actually helps people by educating them. And that is what, and even Bixby will cue in and say, hey, here's what we've got going on. Our AI is going over here, and I thought I turned my volume off, but sometimes it goes anyway. But the educating people about how this whole world works. With that quick shout out, what you see on the walls, we have Carroll House Furniture. Carroll House has been a sponsor of the show since our inception. We really do appreciate what Carroll House brings to the table, because they are the experts. When you say you need something nice, you like nice things in your little castle, that's what you get when you're dealing with Carroll House. And so with that, we love to give a shout out to those guys, because when you have a nice house, you want nice things, and then you want to have that house to be powered solarly, right? And with good resources. So we love talking about that. And then quick shout out to USA Mortgage, the gentleman there and the ladies there, Emily and Steve, and lots of great videos we've had with all of our guests. You can see those. And then finally, the important thing we want to talk about, Sunsent Solar. I love that name. Rory, tell me, why did you guys decide to get into this?
Well, so I think Dustin and I each took a little bit of a different path to really getting into solar. For me, my parents actually sold their house and moved to the middle of nowhere where there wasn't any power, and so they installed solar out there. That's been about 5 years ago, and so for me, I got to start seeing how solar worked hands-on out in the middle of nowhere, power being created. And so that's where kind of my interest all started with it. And really paying attention here in the Midwest, it wasn't a big thing yet, and just really over the last couple of years we've seen the industry changing, and it's time for it to grow here. So
well, I appreciate that, and there's obviously a lot of growth to be had, because when you're in an industry that's kind of emerging, the thing you need is somebody knows what they're talking about, right? Dustin, owner. Yep. I'm throwing it on him for a minute there. He doesn't like to be called the owner. He's just Dustin likes to meet with his customers and talk to them and consult with them personally. But Dustin, why is this such an emerging industry, and why did you decide this is where you wanted to go with your business and help people this way?
Yep. So I was in roofing before solar. Actually started helping somebody else out with some installs, and I mean, the guys, we fell in love with it, felt like we were really making a difference. It didn't feel the same way getting off the roof after you did solar versus installing a new roof. We felt much better about the day after installing solar. So yeah, that's what initially attracted us. And after that, we started with the schooling, getting all our certifications and all that good stuff, and here we are.
Well, I mean, when you get into an industry like this that is so well emerging, I shouldn't say so well established, because it has been around for a while. A lot of people don't realize that when this thing was, solar's been around for 25, 30 years. Tell me how long has the industry actually been around? And then there's been a big push for it lately for a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
and why that is.
It's been popular, obviously, in like California, late 80s. I'm sorry, going, I guess, later 90s, early 2000s, when we really started to see a jump there. But yeah, the last 10 years, the technology has changed so much. The strength of the panels are, 5 times, 6 times what they once were. And yeah, I mean, I feel like it's feasible now. It's before you'd fill a roof with solar panels and couldn't power the house, but now you can, some homes you can fill a quarter of the roof and power the home. So it's
Wow, that's a big difference. Rory, talk about that. Why is that exciting?
Oh yeah, I mean the industry is just, yeah, it's like you said, it's emerging. It's something new and exciting, but yet has some history behind it. So we know solar, is it's not new technology as far as does this work. It's new technology as far as advancement and really being available here in the Midwest. I think that's what's exciting to us here. It used to be very expensive, and our electricity rates were so low here that it was something that was really hard to justify from an economical standpoint. And now we've kind of crossed that line where the cost of solars came down. The improvements have been made, as Dustin said, that really you can get enough power out of them that you can power your whole home for a fraction of the cost of what you're paying for electricity now with your utility company.
Great point, because that's something that will make an impact on the decision that people make. Tell me a little bit about that. We always try to get to know who it is we've got on the show and talk a little bit about why they have gotten into this from a historical, like, what was your interest in terms of building and construction? I'll start off with you, Dustin. Tell me a hobby you had as a kid that might lead us to understand why you've decided this is what you like about doing with your life.
Yep. So, hobby as a kid, I've always been interested in construction. I actually started my first business, power washing houses and staining decks and fences at 14 years old. So, yeah, I've always had an interest. I always liked working with my hands. And yeah, I mean, it just kind of led me down different roads and eventually got to the point where, yeah, we're doing solar now.
Solar is where it's at. Rory, tell me the same thing.
So, yeah, for me, that's construction's not so much my thing. I'll leave that to Dustin's expertise. My wife doesn't even let me do DIY projects around the house anymore. But that's why I'm on the education side of the business. For me, it's always been about helping people. That's when I was a kid, running a lemonade stand. It was find the hottest days and go provide somebody a refreshment so they could cool off. And I mean, that's something that's just always propelled me over the years. Just bringing value to people, no matter what I'm doing. I've been in a sales type position for my entire career, but I learned early on that nobody wants to be sold anything. So, if you can just bring people information and it makes sense to them, then they're going to feel good about purchasing things. And that's ultimately where I get my feel good, is knowing somebody made a decision that helps improve their life, and I got to be a part of it.
All right, guys. Dustin, tell me, why did you guys? I know why you got in this now. How long would you say you're with the years of expertise you've got? I know this industry is relatively new, but I think you have a unique tie to that because of the roofing background, and that ties together. Help people understand.
Yep. So this business, we started in 2016. Obviously, we haven't been in solar that long. Solar is new to the industry here. We started looking at solar in 2017. Then end of 2019 is when we really cracked down on it and started really going towards it, moving towards solar.
Good, and that's to know that you've got a number of years in this. Because one of the first questions I always ask when we always pre-screen everybody, if most people understand that makes sense, because we want to get to know who are these guys and what do they do and what's their history, and we want the leaders on this show. So we start talking about, like, you guys have done a ton of work especially for an emerging new company, and starting now in your third year, going fourth year, fifth year coming up, I guess, if you count 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, half a decade going here.
Yep.
Well, but I mean, holy cows! Look, you told me your list and how long I'm like, all right, these guys know what they're doing, and that's what the people we want on the show, right? Of course, we want the experts. So, given the longevity you've got there with regard to it's relatively new industry, with as far as there's this big push now. I think, did Elon Musk have most to do with that, and saying we can power cars this way, and the auto industry was like, right, and then bam, now everybody's
here we are.
And so that kind of justifies what you guys are doing. So hey, everybody, if you're not on this yet, get on it. Sunsent Solar. These guys really know what they're doing. What is it about the business that you guys think fuels your passion? Tell me about that. I'm gonna ask Rory on this one. And I'll come back.
It's helping people take ownership of something that they never had an opportunity to before. We've all been at the mercy of the monopoly of utility companies, and it was the only way that you could get electricity. We didn't ever have any choice. It's not like when we bought our house, we said, let me pick an electricity company. It's just, this is who you got stuck with, and you're stuck paying their prices. And so, it's just, it fuels me. I get excited about people being able to take the ownership of their power. I think it's the same as home ownership. We choose to buy a house instead of just renting all our lives because we want to own it. We want to have control over it, and we want the fixed cost of it. And that's something that we now get to offer people with solar.
Dustin, tell me the same thing. Why is this something?
I mean, I have to say he took the words right out of my mouth with
Okay.
that one. There's one other thing I like to add to it. I've always been kind of a numbers person in the investment of solar. The long-term investment, the money you save is another big thing. You love to see people save something. If you put something in somebody's hands for cheaper than what they can purchase it for, you feel like you've done something good. So yeah, it's just like he said, and just the investment side of it. The two big things for me.
Well, now we're getting into the stuff that really hits home with yours truly, the Cardinal Cowboy. A lot of people do know I have a background in data mining, data study, if you will, and I really get pretty excited about it when I talk to people. I'm like, here is your quote-unquote ROI, right? And if you have a return on investment, that's what we're all looking for, right? You can't sustain yourself as a business if you're not going to continue, or at least initially give somebody some kind of, and that's what I say and I say continue because you want to sell your product again, you want to keep it going, but you can't even get the thing off the ground if you don't have some return on investment. And that's where you really get into the numbers. So do you guys provide some kind of an analysis that shows some numbers and says, hey, here's how this thing goes, this is what you're spending, this is what you'll save, and here's what you'll end up over a long period of time putting back in your pocket? Is that true?
Yeah, when we provide somebody a proposal, a quote, it includes a full analysis of your return on investment, your payback period, based on the price of electricity now and how it's escalating over the next several years. At what point does my upfront cost of this cross over to basically being free electricity? And so it's really fun to sit down and show people those numbers and let them see the picture of how better than pretty much any other investment they can make right now is their investment in solar.
You agree, Dustin?
100%. I mean, we've got people that have pulled money out of the stock market to purchase solar with it because they see, and I'm not kidding you, it's happened multiple times. How many times do you think that's happened so far? I mean, it's happened multiple times, and it's insane. But if you see your money better in another place, you might as well move it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all here for a short period of time. We want to make sure we are getting the best value for what is going on so that we can spend the time here most efficiently. And it's exciting to see young guys. I'm the old guy here now, but that are on the ball to let everybody see something that really could make an impact. And you start getting into the long term on this, ladies and gentlemen, as a numbers guy. When you save $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, and then you have kids, and that money now becomes invested. I've done some of that. A lot of people know my background, and with regard to the study and how I've helped clients and some of my financial history, but. That makes a real big impact on people's families and their livelihood and a long-term respect for what they do with their kids for education that they can now afford. And when you have that kind of impact, man, I don't make this too big of a deal, but I mean, literally, this isn't like a $17 purchase. This is something that you're going to spend thousands of dollars on one way or the other, right? Because you have to.
Have it.
Anybody notices? Oh no, we don't need power, right? We'll just let the lights go off, and I mean, there's literally they talk about. If there's a power outage, the impact it has, because there's so many people that depend on it for life sustaining things, respirators and EKGs and all the stuff you need just for the basic at the hospitals, and then you get into all the other rest of stuff, and we could go down.
All your creature comforts, all that stuff, the stuff we're used to on a daily basis. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, take a cell phone away from a little kid and watch how much they squirm right now.
Yes.
Come on, I need that. But that thing is empowered. It's got a battery. We'll talk a little bit about that stuff too. Let's take a look at your guys. You've got some dynamite reviews I'm going to put up on the screen for everybody here. And I want everybody to understand that when you do have a company that has done so well, like you guys have, there's many times a little bit that people have to say. So bear with me as we switch over here, everybody. I want to talk about that because there are so many businesses out there that really try to get it going. And then once they get it going, there's some people that said, not so much. You know, they've struggled a little bit. Not the case here.
No.
And I want to mention that because there are so many people that just that's what they have to sustain with. So here's your Sunsent solar Google's reviews, everybody, and they have they didn't do one of these things where they solicited reviews from every single person and their brother and everything, but you got 31, so that means to me you didn't go out there and just say, hey, go on, we'll give you a free Whopper if you give us a review. But you can see here 31 reviews, all 5s, and so that's impressive because you're taking the time. And I would imagine there was probably a couple of times when somebody said, hey, wait a minute, and he said, well, we'll fix that. And you went in and did so, or else they might not have given you 5, but that's how people wonder how you get 5s, because there's certainly something, but you took care of it, and that's why the people said, okay, now we're going to give you the review. That all makes sense. So I'm going to read the one here we got. This is from Michael Emmons. We love our 19.8 kilowatt system. Rory handled the quote. He was very informative and straightforward. Unlike others that quoted, he was not high pressure, did not bash the competition or overpromise. Dustin, the owner, was involved in installation and setup. We never delayed the installation a bit, but once we got started, or when we did delay, but when we got started, we were determined to complete. Our system went on July, and our system has been meeting and exceeding expectations. That's the kind of review you like to have from people, right? And when you're doing good things, those are the types of things that people will say. I'm gonna jump on another one here because we had a couple of reviews that were good, and this one over here, as we switch screens on everybody, that I like to highlight. You know, I get to pick a little bit about what we're going to talk about. I'm an obsessive researcher, says Jack. Jack Nowdy, how do you say that?
Naughty.
Naughty,
Yeah.
Okay. I'm an obsessive researcher and spend weeks looking at solar panels and solar panel install companies. In the end, I received bids from 7 companies representing a wide variety of pricing and panel options. I picked Sunsent, everybody, solar because they were competitive on price, and perhaps more importantly, I trust that they will be there. If I have any problems or questions. In fact, that early turned out to be true. Kind of what we're talking about there. So something that you had to deal with, but you made them happy, and that's what we're looking for from our the businesses that we have on our show. Dustin, talk about that for me a little bit.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that sets us aside and gets us those good reviews is the no subcontractors. We're all in house. All our electricians, everything, installers, all the way throughout the office, sales folks, everything. We're not selling you a job and just tossing you to someone else that comes slap solar panels on your house. We do this as a team, and I feel like we get better results because of that.
Well, and that just goes to show that you have a lot of fans out there. That's when I say, all right, everybody, I'm putting on the Cardinal Cowboy, the cowboy hat. When you get the support of the community, that's when I start to chirp in a little bit with my Cardinal Cowboy hat. Also, lots of fans because you got a lot of fans. You got some swag, some cool stuff. Rory, show that. Well, you have your own. What do you call this? That's a tumbler.
Yeah, straw cup tumbler. Sure.
And so if you got some, if they like you guys or you like them, reach out to them. Say, give us some of that stuff. We want to represent. And they've even got T-shirts. Guys are on the ball when they've got all the swag. So am I going to be able to keep one of these for myself? Is that all right?
All yours.
That one's yours. Yeah.
All right. I will wear this because that's what I do often. But get yourself a Sunsent T-shirt because these guys are really doing great stuff in the community. They got a little bit of everything here. I've got. Oh wow, we're going to show a little bit more here. Notepads, pens. And tell me, what is this? These are, I don't think I could gamble with these, but this is just a little bit of a reminder for people, and it helps people to take note of what they've got. I'll remember that if I set this on top of it. And then
You come see it at a home show or a farmer's market or something. You get you one of those for for $250 off your solar system. So
Okay, so on here it says that. Is that what it is?
promotional. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So there you go, everybody.
You can try to use them at the casino, but
Yeah, you show up
sure
at
how
the
well that's
casino
gonna
with this. Not likely to get you too far, but this gives you $250 off, and we appreciate that. All right, now we're rolling here. I appreciate. There's a lot of businesses do have promotional materials, right? But a lot of them don't, and it's like, why don't you have that stuff? Because those are the things you have to use to get people to remind you. If you're a serious business, hey guys, we're getting ours too. We have a little bit. Actually, as I said, can't just preach what you don't believe and not do it. We've got some Cardinal Cowboy and some Your Little Castle stuff, but it's important because you're not legit. A lot of people are like, who are these guys? They don't even have a brand. They don't have a stuff, but good work in doing all of that to make that important for everybody. Let's talk a little bit about another important factor that I think really chimes in for something I emphasize. We talked about it a little bit early on, but I want to emphasize this a little bit. When you get into this discussion about what you're doing with regard to sales versus education, and I think that's a huge distinction, and I think it's something that sets you guys apart as I study you guys and understand and reading your reviews. Education, especially in this emerging industry, is critical. Dustin, will you tell me a little bit about that?
Actually, I'm gonna pass this one over to Rory.
This is his area.
Rory's.
Okay,
This is his wheelhouse.
Hey guys, you can tell we don't play favorites here. I kind of call them out. I just throw it out. But these guys know what each is best at. So
yeah.
tell us, Rory.
I mean, we saw as we were really getting into this industry that there was a way things were being done, and a lot of it was high pressure sales. I'm sorry if anybody out there has experienced that. I know it can be uncomfortable where somebody comes in and sits down at your kitchen table and is there for 2 hours trying to get you to make a decision on something for thousands and thousands of dollars right there on the spot. And so you said, we're not going to be those people. For us, that solar, if your house sets up well for it, then solar makes sense for most people. And we figure if we can just provide you the information you need, then you'll be able to make a decision on whether it makes sense for you or not. And so we don't have a sales pitch. I just left somebody's house yesterday that I'd been there for an hour and a half, and as we were wrapping up, I was there that long because they had lots of questions. But as we were wrapping up, that's what the homeowner said to me. Thank you. I've had to literally walk people out of my house because they would not stop trying to force us to sign a contract. And it's like, it's not the way we do things. Here's the information, and if it makes sense for you, then great, let's work together. And if it doesn't, then that's fine. So we just want to be able to sleep well at night and know that
I'm completely with you on that. I mean, I know that it is, and it's like you the good thing you've got to offer, but you don't want to push it because they don't understand everything that's going on with regard to that discussion, and it can be something that could lose the ability to help somebody because you're not going at it the right way.
It's all about just helping people.
All right, talk to me about another important one. I'm going to throw this one to you, though, Dustin.
Okay.
You have your own installation crew.
Yep,
Something that's not contracted out. That is a big deal for a lot of reasons. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yes. So the biggest difference you see within solar companies or any other service-based business is that you've got these all in-house companies, and you've got other companies that's everything subcontracted. And obviously we know the routine. They come out to your house, they sell you something, and next thing you know it, you got some random crew that shows up to slap the work on, and your taillight warranty, they're gone. It's you're just not taken care of the way that you should be. But us, we try to do this the best way possible. Said no subcontractors. The roof side, our installers on the roof are all in-house employees. The electricians are all in-house employees. We have our an electrician license. And I feel like that's just a huge difference in all industries, but especially ours, because with solar, you just got a lot of sales organizations running around selling stuff, and you got an out of town crew that comes in and puts it on. And guess what happens in 6 months or a year when something's messed up, or you finally realize something's messed up? They're going to put you to the side till the next time they're in your town to fix it. They're not going to drive from Iowa to St. Louis or to Central Illinois to repair something that's 6 or 8 hours away. You don't have the same care within your home. It's I feel like that's a huge deal when hiring any service business to do any type of work at your home.
No, I've had that discussion here with Coach House Garages was on, and they made that point. I had not heard that, the tail
light warranty.
Tail light warranty, and that is if you can see the tail lights, that's how long your warranty is good for.
Yeah.
Because as soon as there's something outside of, they're 30 minutes away, good luck getting them to come back.
Yeah.
And that's really important when you're talking about, again, this is not a $15 or $30 or $500 decision. This is a $20, $30, $50, $100,000 decision for some people, places that are larger facilities, and that's really important that people understand that, because these things are expensive to get fixed, and if something happens for whatever reason, it's covered by the warranty, then make sure that it gets fixed. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I think our warranties, you call us directly, so we're certified to do not just the installs but the warranty work for all the equipment that we carry, and so you're not calling the manufacturer, you call us.
Well, that's the key, and that's what we want to emphasize as people that are considering using the businesses that we talk about on our show. We're not specifically saying, hey, you must use these people. We're just trying to share the information with leaders that we find in the community, but we also want the people we know we can stand behind.
Yep.
And there are probably some people might call. We haven't had an issue yet. We've been going for 75 or so interviews now, and everybody so far has done well. That's because we vet them before, everybody. So for those of you listening, we want to make sure we're working with the guys who have the reputation, that are doing the good work, and that's why we have them on the show. I want to show one bit here as we finish up. This is the first half-hour segment of our show. The entire show will be on ABC in terms of the 28 minutes, 30 seconds. That's the ABC broadcasted show. And if we do put this on another network at some other time, potentially, right, somewhere else, who knows where, whether that's on a live stream or some other available network, then you might be able to see the full interview, because we're going to go on now for another 30 or 40 or 2 hours if we have to, because these guys have opened up their day to talk about this a little bit and come into the studio. So watch the entire interview, if you will, and you can see that out there on our Your Little Castle. It'll be linked, and we're giving these guys a copy of this. We want them to put it on their social media. So check out their information on their website. As you can see, we do have some expert, but sunsent.com. This is Dustin next to me, and then Rory over here, and you can see we want you guys to get this information out there. So let's look at the website real quickly, if that's all right with you guys. I've got that up here on the computer, and you can see there's our wall. And as I was browsing around on your website, you guys have a ton of really good information here, and I want people to understand that when you have a good business that has all the information out there, there it is for everybody to see. And tell me some of the highlights you would like people to notice. I did notice you have more with regard to solar has never been easier, and the solar tax credit. Do you want to talk about those at all?
Sure. Yeah. Let's give them a rundown on the old tax credit.
Talk about this. I know this is a big deal right now.
Yeah. So the tax credit was raised to 30%. It's what is it? Good till
2032.
2032. Okay.
So, big thing with the tax credit is, just the fact that you don't have to be able to claim it all in 1 year to get the advantage of it, because it has been extended out to 2032. You can roll that over from year to year until you collect the entirety of it on your taxes. Anytime you can get 30% paid back to you on a purchase like this, it really helps make that return on investment happen all that much quicker.
Okay. And another thing obviously important as far as the focus, you guys have seen the titles that we put up for these guys, but they service mostly Southern Illinois, right, and Missouri. And so, but you can anywhere in Missouri, anywhere in Illinois, correct?
Yep.
And those are your two areas of emphasis. So likely you might be able to, can you help people outside of those two states? Or is it licensing issues, or how does that work?
Yeah, so right now, Central Illinois down through Southern Illinois, and then Missouri are our main focus areas. We're in the process of opening up in Southern Indiana as well. We're growing throughout the Midwest, but the primary areas currently is that Central to Southern Illinois, and then we're licensed in all of Missouri, but the majority of things, Columbia down to the lake, and back up through St. Louis and Northeast Missouri.
tell me then about the own your energy, and this is what it's all really about, right? How to own your energy. That's a good link you got on your page there. Tell me a little bit more about this. Who wants to talk about that? Why is that so important?
Well, I mean, when you're buying your energy from the electric company, you're technically renting it. You know, it's you pay them for what you use, and your money's gone. When you own your energy, you're purchasing solar panels and continue to produce and produce and produce. It's no different than owning or renting a home or owning or renting a car. So, I mean, you got anything you want to add to that?
I mean, I think it's the biggest factor is being able to secure what you're going to pay for electricity for most of it's the rest of our life. I mean, we were seeing, we had here in Missouri, we had a 9% increase in electric rates last year. We got 11% increase coming this summer. On the Illinois side, they saw a 40% increase last summer.
Holy cow.
This isn't going to stop. We're in the process of eliminating coal as the primary source of producing electricity. Coal is very, very cheap and very efficient. It does a very good job, but we know that there's environmental hazards that come along with that, and as a country we've said we've got to stop. And so if you look anywhere else in the country where they're not using coal as a primary fuel source, utility rates are 2 to 3 times what we pay here. We still have very, very low electric rates compared to other parts of the country, and that's just, it's changing. We know that's not going to stay the same, and so if you can again buy your power where you're paying yourself every month, there's great financing available for solar. That's one of the questions we get often is how much money do I got to come up with out of pocket? And you actually don't have to come up with anything out of pocket. There is financing available that allows you to immediately start seeing some savings month after month, and now you're buying your power from yourself instead of the utility company, and you've increased the value of your home at the same time. So
a lot of good reasons to get solar, and it seems that it's just back to that education piece. And you guys really know your stuff, Rory, man. It's good, Dustin. You guys, that's why we bring our guests in the studio, is just to help people understand this is not a 15-second, 30-second, 2-minute discussion with a quick flash. It's hey, we're going to have a 28-minute initial that'll be on the big network that we love, and then another half hour to another hour, depending on how long we go, to talk more in depth about why this stuff is so important and the pieces that are necessary. But with that, I want to continue on with a couple other important points. And this is something I try to ask everybody that's on the show, because this is something that makes it for the success of any business. And so you're really giving tips to other people that might start their own company. But at the same time, it gives you a chance to highlight yourselves. But what would you guys say, what is the one thing that really sets you guys apart? And maybe we covered that a little bit, but I want to emphasize that because we haven't talked about a couple highlights. But if there's one thing, this is the difference maker. This is what we do best. Who would like to take that and tell me what you think that is?
You probably have this conversation a lot. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a question that comes up, when we're sitting down with people often, and I think, more than anything, they tend to answer it themselves. It's the fact that we're not high pressure. It's the fact that we're there to provide the information, and then I think on the back end, what becomes, that's something people can see right up front. What I think's probably actually the biggest difference is the fact that we're here and we're going to be around. The fact that we do all our own installs, as we've talked about, it means that anytime you have a question about your system, anytime that there's you need a warranty claim, it's coming directly to us. You don't have to call some big company's 800 number and sit on hold. You don't have to try to call your sales rep who tells you, well, the installer isn't around. We'll hopefully get somebody out there sometime. We have our people in-house right here that are going to come out and take care of things.
I'm going to put the owner on the spot just a little bit.
Yep.
Dustin, what do you think it is that sets you apart?
I think the educating versus sales, the high pressure sales, we get a lot of feedback from homeowners that, they feel uncomfortable at their own kitchen table.
It's not a good place for people to be.
Yes, I feel like that's a huge one, and I go back to the the no subcontractor thing. Most business, other solar companies use subcontractors and just don't deliver the product that they could. And I would say it'd have to be one of those two.
I will throw in one more thing with that is just we also decided we were going to provide a production guarantee with our systems. So that's you can get a quote on how much power your system's going to produce, and you kind of are trusting the person sitting across the table that they're telling you the truth about that. We actually decided we'll put our money where our mouth is on that, and so we guarantee that at the end of 12 months we review the system, ensure that it's producing what we said it's going to produce, and if it doesn't, then we'll add the panels to make up the difference.
Very important stuff, and glad you guys cover that so thoroughly, because that's the difference between a successful business very often and one that struggles, because if you don't do something better than the other guys, how are you gonna stick around? And we all want the company that we spent a lot of money with to get something that's supposed to last for a long time to be around for a long time too. So that's good to hear. Probably my favorite question I like to ask here, and this is something that really impacts the consumer. What is a mistake that most people make when they're making this kind of a purchase? This is a big decision for a lot of people. Like I say, this isn't just, I guess it's people like, oh, the car is the second most expensive purchase people make. Maybe not. This is more than cars, and it's important. But over time,
I know cars are
Not
pretty
these
expensive
days.
now.
Yeah.
I'll say, man,
Okay.
it's hard to get out in a brand new car for under $50,000. It's
Right.
crazy now.
And I guess what the big difference I would like to mention here is I say that, and I love my car guys. We've got car sponsors. We got all kinds of car stuff, but the cars, you have to have them to get you where they depreciate. These provide an ROI that's a little different.
Yeah.
But tell me the mistake that you think a lot of people end up making when they're looking into this kind of a decision.
I think for me in those conversations, it's really looking at what does your future of electricity look like. I think so many people look at what's going on right now and don't think about, oh, hey, am I going to have an electric vehicle here down the road? When my appliances start to fail that are running on gas, am I going to want to switch those to electricity? Is there other efficiency things that could be done with my home now to help reduce my overall consumption to make the solar an even better investment? So those are some of the things that we'll bring up as part of the conversation and help people start thinking about just their overall picture more than just, hey, how do we produce the power we need today?
Well, yeah, and those are the things that people need to keep in mind, because this is something that isn't just a little bit of pick one of those solar panels up and let's put it on our roof, right? We've got everything we need, and I think the solar problem is fixed. It's never gonna. That'll ever be the way this is done, but very important to focus on the stuff that way. All right, well, tell me a time when you really felt like you made a difference with somebody. There might have been something that they had not been informed about, or something was done incorrectly, and you came in and fixed it, or even maybe a time when you had somebody that was like, wait a minute, this didn't go like I thought, or something I don't understand. Give me a good example there, because that helps people understand how you deal with obstacles, overcoming hurdles, we call that.
I've got a few that come to mind. From fixing other folks' mistakes on, solar system that was installed and improperly installed, and went back and had to fix some stuff on that, like leak issues, stuff like that. Been down that road before. I felt was a huge help. Got anything you want to add in there?
No.
Good. Well, that means there's probably less of the problems you guys have had to deal with than a lot of people have. But I throw that question in there, and sometimes I just throw stuff in for everybody because I want to hear, have they had a big problem that they go, oh, but somebody like yourselves who's gone and fixed a lot of problems. When you have your own crew, I think that makes you avert a lot of those problems. Is that kind of what
Yes.
you may have seen?
Yes. We're there every day.
Right.
I see these guys every single morning. I'm with them most of the days. So I feel like, yes, when you've got a pulse on the business, what's going on, versus just sending someone a text message like, hey, we got this job for you to install at such and such address. I feel like that's a huge difference.
Very good. All right, now we're talking about the stuff that gets into where we're really focusing on our consumers, and where they have a lot to consider here, and they want to make sure they're getting this done the right way. The process for somebody when they want to get started with you. tell me that. I think, Rory, is that a
Yep.
good question for you? You deal with most of the customers up front and say, hey, all right, but before they reach out to you, before they come to you and say, hey, what would they do? Is it they go to the website, they schedule? What's the process to get started with you guys?
Yeah, so we try to make it as easy as possible for people. I mean, they can go to our website, and there's actually get an instant quote option on there. So, you know, if you're just kind of in that kicking tires phase, just kind of interested, what would solar cost me? You can go on there and just punch in some really basic information and get text or emailed a generic quote just to give you a ballpark number to see if your house even sets up well for solar. You know, and then they can, of course, call directly to our office as well. And then we do appointments either by in person. We'll come out to people's homes, which is something that a lot of companies don't do. They want to do it all online. So, you know, we'll come out and actually evaluate the house to make sure it's going to be a good fit. Some people, you know, have had some bad experiences. They don't want anybody out to their house until they get farther in the process, which is completely fine. So we'll also do phone consultations. So yeah, we try to make it easy for people. They can, whether they go on the website to schedule or whether they call our office to schedule. You know, me or one of the other folks on our home eval team will sit down with them and kind of meet them where they're at and take them through the process of making sure they know all the information they need to decide whether it's right for them.
That's why you need experts who educate, not just sell, right? If I just tell you a bunch of stuff but I don't understand the depth behind it, my dad used to emphasize to me, my dad has honorary PhD, he had a PhD also, they did everything, all but dissertation. Kind of my mom would make some, you did everything, you went through the oral exams, but you never got the final. But the point is, be well educated, be informative. The more information you have, the more knowledge you have, the more you can help people.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that don't want to take that extra effort, but why wouldn't you if you're running a business and you're being successful? That's what I see. I think we're demonstrating to everybody here that you guys really know your stuff. That's critical.
And Carter, I mean, that's one of the things we did on our home eval team. We've got Marlon, who actually was in the solar business for over 20 years out in California. So, you know, he brings a lot of knowledge to our team there to make sure that we all understand the ins and outs and things that only experience teaches you. So, and one of our other home evaluators actually is she came from the education field. She's a retired principal. So we take education really serious.
And that's the key to it. Would you agree with that, Dustin?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, if you've got to sell somebody something, do they really need it? Do they really want it? You know, that's the way I look at that. It's educate them and let them make the decision whether it's right or not for them.
I appreciate that, because I've had many people come in to meet with us to talk about what we do, and then we start talking about all that we offer and say, we do this is what we do for our show, and this is how we like to contribute to the community. And here's the other things that we do. And they say, oh, you're a business, not just a TV show. Like, yeah, we're here to help these business owners understand that you've got to get the word out. But if you don't make it clear and you're not giving something that they need, you won't be in business for very long. And I think you guys do a good job with that as well. I know we talked a little bit about earlier because we went over it on your website, but I wanted to be clear to people a little bit about the incentives. Because let's essentially, can we go over that one more time? I've got my notes here, and it's down on our list of things to talk about. More than once is okay, because when you get into the quick version we did earlier, kind of going through the website, do you want me to put that up on the website to show that again, or you just want to talk about it? How do you think you best convey? And when you're sitting in front of somebody, how do you explain this?
Yeah, so great question. I mean, that's obviously the tax credit we touched on, but that's not where incentives end. And so depending on where you live, those additional incentives will vary some. Illinois is hands down the best place in the country to buy solar right now. They've got some very, very aggressive goals as a state for how much of their power they want produced from solar. And so the utility companies are actually funding a program that incentivizes consumers by, with cash money. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. They will they will essentially pay for part of your system. And then on the Missouri side, rebates look a little bit different depending on where you're at as well. But that's one of those things that we dig into on an individual level, because it's going to depend on the size of your system and where you're located to make make sure that we're showing you exactly everything you qualify for. But again, just the push from these states to ensure that a certain amount of power is being produced from a renewable resource is where these funds come from. We get that question a lot, like, what do you mean they're going to send me money? Like, why is somebody going to send me money for buying solar? It's like, well, it's about the initiatives that, as a country we have for making sure that a certain percentage of our power is coming from a renewable resource. That's the answer to that question. That's why there's money to be had out there.
Well said, and very important for people to understand, because back to what are we trying to do to best survive and last on this little planet? And we think we know that there's a limited resource with regard to oil and coal, but that sun thing is probably going to be going for a little while.
Yeah, we got bigger problems if we lose the sun.
Yeah, and they do talk about the sun is going to expand as stars do, and then we won't be here for all that, right? But that's like 40 million years from now. But we're going to go a lot sooner, could likely run out of all their stuff. So we've got to start making this move. And it's good to see leaders like yourselves that are taking the time to help people understand this. And and now especially the incentives that are there to help really people benefit from it. Because in the past, I tell me, if it was a matter of if you didn't want to do these things, that was fine. Or sometimes you had to do them because there was like running electrical out to the remote location was hard. But now it's like, man, you're kind of crazy if you don't do it. Some people would say, is that a fair statement? I don't want to put in the words anybody might say, you better do this or else. But I mean, it makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, I mean, solar is not right for everybody, but if it is right for you, yes, it makes sense. It's almost crazy. When you actually sit down and look at the numbers, it's almost crazy not to do it. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Okay, that's a fair statement. I want to represent fairly what we're talking about here, and that's good to hear. How long do solar panels actually last?
So there's no moving parts in solar panels, which is a great thing.
Right.
No moving parts,
Okay.
nothing to break. Forever. They've got what's called degradation, which means they do over time slowly get a little bit weaker and produce a little less. But there's some pretty old solar panels out there that are still working just fine. It's the degradation. There's no moving parts, so just nothing to break whatsoever.
And let me emphasize that a little bit for everybody. But as a matter of no moving parts, you guys used to hear about hardware failure on computers. I'm a computer guy, and the reason you had computers fail most of the time was because the hard drive, because it's got a disk spinning. Anytime you have moving parts, everybody, that's why electric cars will last a lot longer, because there's not all that combustion and the cylinders and pistons and everything going. But with a solar panel, no moving parts.
No.
It has that absorption component that takes in the sun, right?
Yep.
And outside of that, it doesn't move, right?
Yeah.
It just says, "Zzz, take this, it's coming at me, come into the system and run it through what we do."
Yep. Most of the time, if you're replacing a solar panel, it's like physically damaged. Tree limb crashed out onto it or something along those lines.
Okay. Very important stuff for people to understand as we get into like, what am I really getting and how long do these things last? Potentially, I would say forever, indefinitely.
I mean, you should see a solid 40, 50 years out of your solar panels.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
That's amazing, yeah. Do I need a battery? I mean, a lot of people talk about how do you store this power. Do I have to have a battery? Is that an upcoming? I know that the industry's moving towards that, I guess, because you got to store this stuff if you're really going to make long use of it, and that's emerging right now, isn't it?
So there's multiple different types of systems. You can have either a grid-tied system, where you use the grid as your battery bank. You push it in and take back out what you need on net metering. The other option is, yes, harnessing the energy that you produce via a battery. That is an option as well. But it just all depends on who you are and what you need, what type of issues you're dealing with on the grid. Not everybody has this, we've got obviously your underground grid, and you got your stuff that's still running on poles that's above ground that tends to have a few more issues. So anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, it's a case-by-case scenario. You don't need a battery. Most of us, it's not the most economical friendly purchase. That's I always tell people, solar's creating electricity. That's something that you're using every single day. Whereas a battery really is replacing a generator, which is something you use in a power outage situation. So kind of depending on your scenario, really dictates whether a battery necessarily makes sense for you or not. And we always kind of comb through that and show people the options. And that's some see the value in it and at it, but it's a misconception that it's necessary. It's not a necessity.
Well, I think that's important for a lot of people to understand from the perspective also that there kind of is one giant battery out there in the sky, right? This thing that's where we talked about sustainable, something that's coal. There's a whole process that has to go through. There's oil, even the water turbines. That's a process. Sun is just saying, here it is, capture it, or it's moving on, right?
Yeah.
And if you got the device to capture that, then you're set. Also, it provides for some of those people who might have a little discussion as we get a little bit on a tangent related to this. If you've got solar panels on your roof, you have a way to have electricity come in if everything else went down, right? I mean, there'd have to be some kind of a retrofit aftermarket thing or something, but the electrical grid gets shut down and there's not power coming from the electrical company. You got no way to get any kind of power to your house unless you go get a generator, or by having these panels, you kind of got a little bit of an insurance policy there to say, per se, but not by definition of a true insurance policy, but something else to be there to say, hey, this thing can capture this stuff because I have the panels to do it. If you don't, then you don't. You're counting on somebody else. Is that part of what you have to deal with?
Yeah, Carter, I mean, that's a great point, because that's a conversation we have a lot. And it's really, that's where a battery can come into play, right? Like, so okay. With electricity, we have to have some sort of grid to regulate all that power and to ground it out. And so with solar by itself, if the grid goes down, you still don't have power. That's, a lot of people think, sun's shining, my house is going to work still, right? And conventional wisdom tells us, yes, that's how I thought it was until I got into this industry. But what you find is that if your solar panels were working while the grid was down, anything extra that your house wasn't using would still be being pumped back into the grid. Okay, and so that would be a problem, because that lineman that's out there trying to fix the lines that are not working now got electrocuted. And so you can't do that. And so they have these rapid shutdowns that automatically disconnect from the grid. And that's where you can get into batteries that will regulate that power and allow you to keep your home running. Or there's new technology that's out right now and developing that's referred to as sunshine backup a lot of times. And that's where it will actually formulate its own grid for you and allow you to keep functioning some electricity at least while the sun's shining.
And that's where I'm kind of going with that. Is a matter of now you do have an additional resource. It's attached to your house. You're not left on your own with no other option. This is something, and the technology is evolving, and the batteries are coming around to where it can be not long from now. It's already available, right?
Yep.
But not long from now, that will be more standard. But if you don't have the panels on your roof, there's no option, right? Yep. You can't absorb the sun that's coming in if you don't have the panels. So it's kind of a proactive thing, I'm saying. And I'm just trying to help people understand. You're being proactive by doing this, and you're saving money and all the other great things that go along with it. But you now have a resource that is there, and the technology is evolving to where this thing will be more. But if you don't have it, you're on your own. And if we get into the whole discussion, I could go on for hours about how much we depend on electricity and how vital it is for the sustenance of survivability of people. Yeah,
I mean, we saw it down in Texas, a couple of years ago when their grid was down and they were without power for a long time. I mean, it's essential for the way we live now, that's for sure.
Well said. So tell me, how do you actually save money with solar? And I know kind of we went over the whole overview, but I want to summarize this for everybody. How is it that people actually do save money with solar? And can you explain to me how that works so it's comprehensible for the average consumer to say, well, now what's going on? It's coming into my house and then it's selling it back to the grid, and is there little guys running along carrying the energy? What's going on here? How does this work?
Yeah, so, I mean, solar itself, right, the panels are absorbing power. You have inverters that are transitioning that power from DC to AC, what our home runs off of. And then that power powers your home. The rest of it then is being pumped back into the grid. Most of the time during the day, the sun's shining, you're creating more power than you need. So net metering is what the policy is that allows you to pump power back into the grid so that it can be used, by the power company to power other people's homes, actually. And then nighttime comes around, obviously, and you are not producing any power from your solar panels. So everything you sent in, now you can pull back. And so that's where all the value comes from as far as bill savings. If I sent in 400 kilowatts into the grid throughout the month and I pulled 400 kilowatts from the kilowatt hours from the grid, now those have evened out and I've zeroed out my bill. So now my electric bill is nothing more than the connection fee that it costs to be connected to the grid, right? So that's the obvious savings, and how people, depending on how you go about buying your solar is going to kind of show how you save money. If you buy it cash up front, then you're just looking at that overturn long-term savings in that way. If you finance it, most times you're seeing, a 10 to 20% reduction in what you're paying on a solar loan versus what you're paying the utility company. And then that spread, every time utility rates go up and you're still paying the same thing, you're just saving more and more money.
Well, that's kind of a relief to know that you're not only doing well for yourself, but you're kind of giving back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people may not understand that, but that's really what's going on here. Somebody got smart and said, hey, there's not just enough here to provide for the individual, because like you were saying, Dustin, these panels have really increased in efficiency. So now they don't just produce enough. There used to be they didn't even produce enough.
Yeah.
Now they produce enough to where you can actually give back to the grid and help the other people who need the power from wherever it is, and you get compensated for that. Is that what you're saying, Rory?
Yep. Yeah, you get a one-to-one exchange of that, and you think about it. I mean, the grid is something that was built a long time ago, and the infrastructure for that was not set up for the amount of electricity that we consume right now. So, and what we're going to be consuming in the future. So, every time somebody puts solar up, we're producing power typically in one of the biggest straining points of the grid when it's really hot and everybody's running their AC, right? So, if we're able to pump some more power back into the grid, we're really helping support. I mean, there's one of your feel goods of doing this, right? I mean, you're helping support the overall power for everybody.
Very important stuff, and we appreciate you sharing all that. We do talk a little bit about some of the fun stuff that you guys do as St. Louis natives. Are you guys both from St. Louis? And tell me a little bit about what you guys do for fun, what you love about our city.
Yep, I'm from St. Louis. We do a lot of stuff for fun. Blues games, Cardinal games, city games now.
Soccer.
Soccer, yeah. So it's really, really exciting to see that we finally got us a soccer team. And, yeah, we love the sports in our household.
Sports is essential, I think, and get into that discussion with a lot of people. There's so much you learn. That's part of my pitch I was talking about. There's a well-known organization in St. Louis that I'm potentially going to have some discussion with and talk about how the impact is and what we all do with regard to being involved in the community, and sports is such an important part. And the thing I like to emphasize, not to get into a political discussion at all, but it's non-political. It's right. It's sports is like, I love my team, and I don't care what you believe about your personal whatever. Well, support, and that brings us together. And I think showing your support, and we like the fact that you're kind of showing a little bit of that here. As you can see, Dustin's got you got the STL on the hat there. Good work. And I know the Cardinals do a lot for our community. I love my Cardinals, obviously. Rory, anything exciting you would like to mention?
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up in Central Illinois and been in St. Louis for about 4 years now. And I mean, this was the city for us when you lived in the middle of cornfields. This was the closest city. And so my dad had season tickets to the Cardinals when I was really young. And so, I mean, I grew up coming to games, and I've always wanted to live here. And so it was after a couple other moves that the family and I ended up right here in the greater St. Louis area. And we still exploring the city. We're like tourists to the area. So
well, good information, guys, and we appreciate you taking the time to come on the show here with us, because there is so much that goes on in our community, and you don't really get to know the people who are shaking and making it happen, as I say. And so with that, we want to bring on the leaders in the community and spend a little time talking about what they do and how they came about what they have discovered that they can do to help make the place our planet a little bit better place. And you're really doing it from like a global perspective when you get into this whole solar discussion. And it's good to have leaders like that in our studio here to help everybody understand that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for more. This is Your Little Castle Show. We've been in studio here for an hour talking about all the excitement about solar. If you want to learn more information, take the time to do that. Watch the whole interview. Check out Sunsent. These guys really know their stuff, and when it comes down to getting into the experts, Rory, and then the owner Dustin, go to Sunsent, SUNSENT.com. You can see their information there, their phone number, and we look forward to having you guys on here again. Maybe talk a little bit about this and bringing some more of that excitement to this world, a little bit more of the community stuff we can do.
Oh yeah, most definitely. We love having solar conversations. So
you got it. All right, everybody.